Dr. Iraj Abedian is the Chief Economist at Pan-African Investment and Research Services, and he joins us now via Zoom. Always good to talk to you. Thank you so much indeed for joining us. What are your thoughts ahead of this announcement by Stats SA?
Thanks very much, Peter, for inviting me. I think generally we all know that the economy has been under pressure. Its basic infrastructural backbone has been hollowed out, and the confidence is very low. At the same time, the global backdrop to the local economy is also not helpful and favorable. There's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of doubt, there's a lot of fear. So in this environment, it's very difficult for investment to take place, and unless investment takes place on a large scale, we are not going to be able to break the back of our unemployment. Therefore, as others commented, the likelihood is that we're going to have a rising unemployment in the short term.
You know, in accounting, often what they do when they're comparing one year to the next, they take out the unusual item, the effect of an unusual item, in this case, the flooding and that kind of thing. And if we account for that, where would we be? Would we still be on a decline?
Yeah, Peter, the reality is that if you go back 12 years to 2012, our economy has been growing downwards or declining downwards steadily. Our national global sovereign rating, credit rating, if you prefer, has gone from above investment grade to now junk status. So all of these are not short-term, one-time type of allocation that we can take it out of the equation. These are systemic decline and neglect of the economy. Quite frankly, to be technically, our economy has been, on the one hand, without pilot for over 10 years, if it was an aeroplane, and at the same time, its fundamental infrastructure had been under attack. The key engines of this aeroplane had been attacked. By that, I mean the hollowing out of our energy sector, the hollowing out of our transnet and ports and railways and so on and so forth. So that's the reality that the economy has been experiencing over the past decade. And unless we begin to genuinely and urgently deal with those, we are not going to deal with the sort of secular, as they call it, or long-term decline of the capacity of the economy to generate opportunities, investments, and create jobs.
For sure, there have been global shocks over time, but it sounds as if a lot of our problems have been self-inflicted and policy failures of the greatest order.
Absolutely, Peter. These are the so-called own goals, one after another. Of course, we've had COVID. Of course, we've had Ukrainian war. Of course, we've had other problems. But our real problem is that we have been damaging our own economy. We have not been even implementing what government department, National Treasury has been saying. So government has been so-called at war with itself. And instead of focusing on dealing with these policy reforms, as they affectionately known, we don't do anything, and therefore our energy gets worse, energy gets more disruptive, it becomes more destructive to the economy, and of course on top of it, other so-called external or exogenous happened along the way, which is common. If you go over 10 years, you have to expect some or other type of crisis in every decade. But that's not what causes the secular decline of our economy and job losses. It's the neglect of the economy, and it's the fact that nobody seems to want to take charge and do productive things. And when there is an announcement, no sooner one minister has made an announcement, the other minister attacks it. 5 years later, we're still deciding what to do, and the economy suffers in the meantime.
Are you seeing any glimmers of hope, any green shoots that might suggest that there's a turnaround by the policymakers?
Not so much of a green shoot in a policy making, but the economy and technology create a lot of green shoots, have already created green shoots. Regrettably, our government has become more of a blockage, or policy or lack of policy implementation has become a blockage. But the rest of the economy, for example, the mining sector is doing well despite all the problems that we've had in energy and so on and so forth, because there is a global commodity booms happening. Our agriculture is doing well despite the fact that it's saddled by all kinds of policy issues and infrastructural issues. So I think this economy is fairly resilient, but we could be doing much, much better than what we are if we had a government that was focused, that was coordinated, and that was less talk and more action.
So these figures tomorrow are pretty much going to tell us what we already know. The question is, can it still get worse?
It can always get worse. That you can rest assured in. The economy, Peter, is like a human body. If it's beset by sickness, by cancer, and if you don't do something effective and treat it in time, you can rest assured the system can degenerate more and more and more. There is no bottom to the degeneration, and there are global examples to it. So, and oddly enough, it cannot self-correct. It requires policy intervention, intentional, time-bound, and urgent. That's what this economy needs to unlock its potential and turn around the negative trends in terms of unemployment and poverty.
All right. Dr. Iraj Abedian, it was great talking to you. Look forward to our next chat. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Peter.
All right, that's Dr. Iraj Abedian talking to us about the unemployment figures that we're going to hear tomorrow. And we believe it's going to paint a pretty grim picture, and that it's going to look worse than we've seen it in decades. We'll be on top of that story for you tomorrow.